record this session. There it is. Sarah and I are on the same wavelength. So we're going to record today's session. So this will be shared like on our YouTube channel and maybe our Facebook page, but for sure YouTube. But just do be aware that we'll be recording. And then on August 16th, which is 2 Wednesdays from now, Andrew Foxwell is going to be speaking about Facebook ads, what's working right now with meta ads. If you don't know Andrew, he's a past member of our board, but he's also literally a world-renowned Facebook ad marketer. Literally world-renowned. I mean, he's one of the best in the world when it comes to Facebook ads. I have literally seen tweets from Meta saying they were excited to learn from Andrew about how Meta ads work. That is the level that Andrew is when it comes to Facebook ads. So if you've ever run a Facebook ad, never run one, looking to run them, definitely mark your calendar. That's the 3rd Wednesday. That event, like all of our events, is free. At 7:30 in the morning, we will have food at Dream Bank in downtown Madison, followed by our session at 8. That session will also be live streamed on our Facebook page. So if you are not already on our mailing list, sign up today at smbmad.org. Could somebody drop that in the chat? smbmad.org. You could sign up for our mailing list for free, and that will help you know when our events are. And like I said, those are streamed live on our Facebook page, but we prefer to have y'all in person together hanging out with us. One last plug, we have a Facebook group for those of you in the area, Social Media Madison Masterminds, where folks can continue the conversation when these sessions end. With that, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Eagan. This came together really quickly because so many people were asking about it, and we knew that our community needed help with GA4, and we knew the perfect person to ask. We're big fans of Eagan. He's presented many times with us. He knows his stuff, and I'm excited to learn from him. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Eagan. Thanks so much.
All right. Huge thanks, Josh and Sarah and everybody else at Social Media Breakfast. It's great to be back. It might be a couple of years since I've been here. It's always such a great group. So happy to be here with such great marketers. I will pull up my screen and we can jump into it here. So today we are talking about how to make the most of the new Google Analytics GA4. A little bit about me. So I started Get Found Madison, really as an SEO and Google Ads company here in Madison, Wisconsin. Also have an agency called Caravan Digital, where we do more e-commerce marketing. Get Found Madison has been one of the top ranking SEO agencies in Madison for quite a while. I have a full-time team of 4 digital marketers. I train boot camps, workshops, courses. I'll talk a little more about that. And yeah, this is me. So thanks so much for joining. Really honored to be here and just love this group. So, and feel free to jump in with questions throughout. If you want to ask, if you want to unmute and ask, that's totally fair game to interrupt. If you want to throw it in the chat, I may have to ask for some help to curate some of those, but feel free to throw those out.
I'm going to interrupt with the first question that's already come in for you. Will we be able to share out a copy of your slides after? We'll be sharing a recording. Can we also share a copy of the slides with that?
Yeah, the slides will definitely be included. So we'll be sure to do that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I was the first one, so feel free to interrupt now as questions come up, but I'll also be monitoring the chat and I'll feed those to you, Eagan, throughout.
All right. Sounds great. Wanted to just quick mention next Wednesday, I'm doing a workshop actually at Goodman Center about how to refresh your digital marketing strategy to actually drive results. I know today we're really talking about the measurement and the analytics side. That's certainly something that my team and I specialize in, but obviously the goal of marketing is to get more business. And so I've really seen a lot of people bouncing around of, hey, how do we do better with SEO? How do we do better with Google ads or Facebook ads? But really it's, what's the strategy? Who are we trying to reach? How are we different than competitors? How do we message with people at different levels in the funnel, et cetera, et cetera? We're going to have a whole morning to do that together. So would love to see you there if you're interested. If you feel like you're kind of bouncing around, doing all kinds of things and not necessarily focused on the 1 to 3 channels and ways to drive results, this will be a great session for you. So would love to see you there. I will try to throw that one in the chat. Give me a second. Let's see how we do. All right, I'll put this in the chat. I'll mention it again at the end, but I just want to mention at the beginning because I know not everybody can always stay to the end. So just wanted to put a plug in there real quick. Would love to see you there at the Goodman Center. All right, here we go. GA4, why use analytics? I always start with why. I'm a big believer in that. So why use analytics? We want to measure marketing performance. Duh, right? That's the idea here. We want to find what's working. We want to find what's not working. And we want to answer questions about how people are using your website, right? You want to find ways to improve your website and any funnels you're running, right? And that's kind of the idea. So we want to measure marketing performance, figure out what's working, what's not working, answer any questions we have about how people are using the site, right? And then improve it as well. So what's changed from the old, what we said, GA3 or Universal Analytics to GA4? What you're going to see here is basically, this is a totally different data structure. So if you're used to the old analytics and you jump in and you're like, what on earth am I looking at? This is part of the reason. The reports look different, but also the data structure on the back is different. Part of the reason is, some bigger companies have maybe an app and a website and they want to see everything all in one, or maybe they have multiple websites, they want to see all in one property. I note to Sarah and Josh and the team, I think there is a way to turn off the chime in Zoom. Not high priority, but just wanted to throw that out there. I thought there was a way in the settings, but feel free to do what you need. Okay, what's changed? So everything's built around users and events, not sessions. So in the old world, the old Google Analytics, basically everything was a session, meaning a visit to your site, and there were users visiting, your site, and they would have different page views and things like that. Now it's all kind of events, and page views are just one kind of event. That's one way to think about it. So this is really an event-based model. It's looking at user interactions because users are doing all kinds of things on your website or potentially even your app, right? That's sort of the idea. So in the old way, it was really session-based. Everything that happened, all the events or page views or whatever that occurred was all inside of a session. It's not that sessions are gone, it's just not the main data structure. So you can kind of see in the old, what we said, Universal Analytics or GA3, it was session-based. This one is more event-based. And a page view is just an event basically, and it's really tied more so to the user now. That's part of the idea, because we know people use different devices, they use different browsers, right? They come back and so on. So the idea is we're trying to stitch that all together as best we can. So in terms of cross-device, cross-platform reporting, it was more limited in the past. Part of the promise and the idea here is we're going to get an idea that this is Eagan, on his iPhone, on his iPad, on his MacBook, on his Mac. Like hopefully we're stitching more of that together and we're counting that all as one user. The only way we can really do that is with big tech of, Facebook knows who you are, right? Meta knows who you are. Google knows who you are. They're kind of the ones that can stitch this together, because it's like you're using Chrome. They've got Google Analytics on all these sites. Potentially you're logged in, as a Google user or in Gmail. That's the idea. That's hopefully we're getting some of that data here. And then there'll be more potential for automation and things like that. So if you've not set it up, or if you're kind of in the middle of your GA4 setup, here's kind of the steps I recommend. So we got to get the code going, basically the property created, the tracking code running. This is JavaScript that's in the background on your site. Just a quick reminder, HTML is like the basic content. That's like, the header, the text on the page, the headers and the basic paragraph text, and then the images and videos. The CSS is what styles it. And then JavaScript is actually, sort of interactivity. It's grabbing things that are going on in the browser and potentially sending them back. So in this case, it's quietly listening in the background to whatever's going on and sending it out to Google Analytics. That's maybe more technical than we need to know, but that's the idea of tracking code is running in the back. We're catching what's going on. I recommend making a conversion map. So part of the frustration around the switch from Universal Analytics to GA4 was Google was really heavy-handed. They were emailing us regularly. They're like, everything's going to blow up. You got to switch July 1 or else. And in many cases, it was sort of just like switch everything over, grab all your goals from Universal Analytics and do that. I really recommend taking this opportunity to look at your site afresh and say, what do we want people doing on that site? For most of us, we want people to buy or contact us. Like, it's that simple. I like to keep it relatively simple. Maybe people can, subscribe to an email list. Maybe they can live chat. Maybe there's in between, but in general, I think most of us on this call, like, that's what we want. We just want people to contact us or buy from us. Let me know if that's not the case and you have other goals. Sometimes there's nonprofits. We want people to, donate and things like that, but that's part of the idea. From there, we want to set up our events and then mark those conversions, those particularly important events, right? And then there's some other GA4 settings I will tell you about. There's some gotchas. As with everything Google, there's great stuff. This is a free analytics tool. Like, it's worth remembering that. But then there's also just things out of the gates where I recommend changing the default settings. I think it's in your best interest. And then we will get to know the new GA4 reports. I know that's a big topic of interest. I know that's been a challenge. So let's just start from the top real quick. I know most of us probably have GA4 running. I did hear some comments before that not everyone has this up and going. Not everyone is using Google Analytics. So we're kind of in different places, those of us on this call. So just a quick reminder, I'm a big fan of Google Tag Manager. So Google Tag Manager lets you keep all your tracking code in one place. So current state, you may rely on your development team or your agency or someone to add code when you're like, okay, we need to add the Google Ads tracking code. We need to add the LinkedIn tracking code. We need to add the Meta Ads tracking code. And then we're kind of just like beholden to the technical people. Google Tag Manager allows you as the marketer to just be in charge of this. And you don't have to like have invisible code in the background and you don't know where things are set. You can kind of see it all in one place. I'll show this here real quick if I can. 1 second, just so you know what I'm talking about. So inside Tag Manager, I'll do mine. So for Get Found Madison, for example, right? I've got all my tracking codes right here. So instead of just directly adding the Google Analytics code, it's like I've got this JavaScript code added in the background on my site, right? And you'll have your own ID. And then all of this is like the tracking that's happening. And so on the right, we have the trigger, what's going on. I have various gravity forms in WordPress. And then what happens? That fires the code. Okay, tell Facebook we got a lead. Tell Google Analytics we got a lead. Tell Google Ads we got a lead. So I know this looks overwhelming, but it's like, this is much better than the code is in the background somewhere in WordPress and we have no idea what's where. This is nice and clean. I'm like, here's the triggers on the right. Here's the code on the left that runs. And so you can use, you can use a plugin or something like that. If you want to just easily implement GA4, you can, but maybe think about how do we keep all of our tracking codes in one place? And at the end, I'll have a resource to learn more about this in case you want. So, if you're running Google Ads, if you're running Meta Ads, if you're running LinkedIn Ads, if you're variously adding, Hotjar and other tracking codes to your site, strongly recommend checking out Google Tag Manager. Okay. Now, we also want to, connect with our various other accounts as well. I'll come back to this, so don't even worry about that. Okay, we're going to create our property. We're going to create a web data stream, and this is kind of a new thing. So part of the idea here is you can kind of see we've got iOS app data streams, we've got Android data streams, and then we've got website data streams. So when you go to create a web one if you're doing it for your website, right? It's going to give you it's going to give you this measurement ID right here. So if indeed you are using a plugin and not Google Tag Manager, you may be able to just put in this measurement ID and it's going to run the rest of the code. That's the idea, right? And then down at the bottom, we've got these events, and I'll kind of be talking about this throughout. Remember, we talked, this is an event-based platform, so page views is in there, but notice now we can track how far are people scrolling. Are they clicking links out to other websites? Are they searching the site? Are they actually watching our embedded YouTube videos? Are they downloading PDFs? Are they filling out our forms? So when you go and do this, and this is an admin, if you already set this up, you can check it out. Again, just go back to your stream details, hit the gear, and just make sure all these are checked. Have all these on. Let's just be listening for these all the time. Time was, in the old world, we had to like set up specialty scroll and video tracking and click tracking with Google Tag Manager, and it was a little more technical. Now Google Analytics is a little better at listening to things out of the gates. Hey, we got a plus, right? This was a mandatory change. No one asked for it, but we are getting some wins. I'll try to call those out and be fair about it too, right? Okay. So yeah, option A, set up GA4 with Google Tag Manager. And notice how simple this is. I'm sorry if I lost anyone when I jumped into GTM. I'll try to keep it basic. So it's like all pages, run the GA4 code. Beautiful. And then I just specify kind of that ID that we talked about. That's all I got to do. It's just running on the site because I've got Tag Manager running. So make that easy. And this is kind of what it looks like. So it's like in Tag Manager, it's like I created a variable. I just pasted in that ID and I've got it triggering on all pages. It's beautiful. You don't have to do that. You can install it manually. So you can just copy this code here. Again, this is the JavaScript code. You can always tell it's JavaScript because it's got the little script tags right there, right? And this is just going to run in the head tag, the very top of all your pages. For many of us, that's something we have to hand to a developer, right? So that's why I like it. You give the Google Tag Manager code to the developer once, never have to go to the developer again. You as the marketer are in charge as the marketing team. So I like that. The other one we mentioned is, use WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or whatever you're on and just plug in that ID. Shopify, WordPress, Squarespace. Yeah, many of these will just have a place for you to paste in your GA4 ID. If you do that, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and do that. Particularly, there's good reasons with, say, Shopify, where it's automatically configuring the other details as well. So there can be good reasons to do that as well. When I do this with WordPress, I'm usually doing it with Google Tag Manager. So just want to throw that out there. All right. So we got the code running in the background. We're starting to get some data, or we've got data from the last few months or whatever we've had this running. Let's take a look at our conversion map. This is a step that my team and I made up, but I strongly recommend it. Here's how we do it. We go through the site and we list out everything that we want people to do. And this seems like tedious and slowing down, like, come on, let's get to the point. But it's like, remember how I said, let's revisit, because all of our goals from Google Universal Analytics, if we had those set up, they may not apply anymore. We switched over websites 3 times. Somebody left the company, like stuff's not set up. So just do this fresh. Okay. So at the Get Found Madison site, we've got all kinds of different gravity forms you saw. Sometimes people can maybe click to call or click to email us. If we get people on the email list, that's still a win. It's not like they're ready to talk to me about digital marketing, but they are going to start, get drip campaigns and get on the newsletter, right? And you can kind of see, I've got it planned out here of, did we set up the trigger, right? So maybe there's a thank you page that people hit. In general, if you've got forms, make your life easier and just go to a thank you page. You can track forms. You saw, GA4 is going to be better at listening to forms. So if you've got a form that someone fills out and then they just stay on the contact page that says, thanks, we'll get a hold of you, that can be okay. But to me, life is always easier with a thank you page. And so then we can just use the trigger is trigger equals thank you page. If someone hits that URL thank you page, it's not like they're going to find it from a menu. That's going to be the way to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this with you. And you can just create a copy. So you're going to have view only access. Okay. But you can copy this and just use it yourself and create your own. So I've got a few details filled in. I can pull up, what a completed one looks like too, if you want to see. But that's sort of the idea there. Okay.
Hey, Eagan, while you're dropping that link in, we did have a question come in. What is a keyword form?
Yeah, and sorry, this is just an example specific to getfoundmadison.com. So you're just going to have a contact form, right? Or sometimes people have a job form and a contact us form. So if you just have one form, just put in contact form there. And you might say this is on the contact. So contact us, that's on the contact page. So this is just an example. Yeah, so this stuff is specific to my site. You're going to potentially have different conversions that are specific to your site. Just clear out everything you see in the template, right? And then go in there and fill in whatever makes sense for you. So this is just a way to list out, what do we want people to do on our site? And there's going to be things that are maybe macro conversions, right? Where it's like they bought a product, they signed up for a class, they they donated money, they contacted us. Maybe it's and there's click to email, click to call. I set that up with Google Tag Manager. Maybe it's, they scheduled something, they scheduled a tour or something like that. Whatever it is, what you want people to do, list those out here. Some of them might be higher in the funnel where it's like they opted into a lead magnet, they subscribed to our email list, they chatted with us on live chat. Put it all in here. The stuff you want people to do, list out your conversions. That's kind of the idea there. Thank you. Let me know if there's other questions about that. So here's an example then when I have this all filled out. Again, not meaning to overwhelm anyone. Let's just take this one by one on the keyword form. So if you go to getfoundmadison.com, there's one that's like, hey, what keywords do you want to rank for? That's that gravity form, basically. It's on the homepage. If people fill that out, I want to track that. In my case, I'm doing it with Tag Manager. You may be able to just do it with GA4, right? I've got a trigger name. I've got a GA4 event. There we go. It's going to just pass in an event called form submit. One little quirk on the events in GA4 is just they're lowercase and they're separated by the underscore. I believe that's what that is. Let me know if that's wrong. We've got no spaces. That's just kind of the format. I recommend that. We kind of mimic that, and then we'll be able to see this data inside GA4. And then did I actually set it up as a conversion? This is kind of like give me a work list. What do I need to do? Is this all set up or not? This one's not set up. Click to email. I need to go, I kind of highlight it for myself and say, I need to mark that as a conversion in GA4. So this gives me a sense of what sort of work do I need to do. It's all going to make more sense. If you're like, what is he talking about? This will make more sense in 1 second. So let's set up our events and our conversions. We've got our code running on the back. That's great. We're starting to get data already, right? We're going to know how many people are coming to the site. We're going to see what pages they're looking at. We're going to be able to dig in where they're coming from. But right now, if we haven't set up conversions, GA4 doesn't necessarily know what are those macro conversions. If they contacted us, if they bought from us, if they signed up for an event, that kind of stuff, if they fill out a job application, that's all a win. That's the whole reason for our website existing. So let's make sure we got that. So we mentioned the events are coming in. The enhanced measurement is better in GA4. Love to see that. I want to make sure I've got events flowing in for everything that's important. Remember how we listed out our conversions in that spreadsheet in the leftmost column? Well, I want to make sure I've got events for all of them. So if I find out, okay, there's a way for people to click and email me from the contact page, but I don't actually, like, there's no event flowing in there, like GA4 is not natively hearing that, even with enhanced measurement, then I'm going to do some additional work, and I'm going to use Google Tag Manager to figure out a trigger and send that event over into GA4. Those click to call, click to email ones, those are the main ones that I'm usually using GTM for, but there's other examples as well. Sometimes we do click to navigate of, we've got a client has a physical location. Someone's going to click to Google Maps. How do I get there? Maybe we want to count that. Maybe we want to send an event in for that. So when you look at your reports, you should see, so if you've had GA4 running for a while, you should see some stuff in here. So go under reporting, engagement events, and just check out your events flowing in here, right? So you're going to see stuff. And this is just what I was talking about of GA4 is tracking all kinds of cool stuff. It's getting all these page views, session starts. It's tracking scroll depth, right? It's tracking clicks. Even if people start the form and they don't finish, people are making progress on the videos. Like, they're doing all kinds of stuff, right? But not all of those means I have their contact info and they're ready to have a sales meeting with me, right? That's, to me, that's a macro conversion. So we're going to let GA4 know which ones do we really care about, which ones are the conversions. So this is under admin. It's like the gear in the lower left. And then we go to events, and we see our list of existing events. You can kind of set the time frame, give yourself 90 days if you've had the code running that long in the back, right? And we're able to mark those ones. And notice this should correspond, I should say, with your map. So we planned it out first. We know everything we want people to do on the site. And now we're going to say, what's a conversion? So notice click to call, click to email. I did special setup so we can actually get events flowing in. Thank you, Google Tag Manager. And if people submit the contact form, same story, right? This is a client GA4 account. We use JotForm for job applications. So we figured out a way to fire that event, JotForm submit. If we get a job application, that's a win. We're actually running ads. This has kind of been an interesting piece of the economy lately of just, it's hard for many people to, it's harder to find workers than it is to find clients or customers sometimes. And so sometimes as a marketing agency, we shift and we're actually running ads so clients can get, employee job applications. Kind of interesting. So yes, we want to be tracking that. We're running Facebook ads for that. And when people fill out that job application, we absolutely want to know that that is a conversion. Okay. This is going to get a little more, I hesitated to even include this, but there's some people that really know what they're doing and want to see this. They're like, great, I've got some events firing. How do I just test? How do I go in there and see this? And what's counterintuitive is in GA4, I'm going to go into mine here, if I can. Sorry, everybody, 1 second. Well, basically in the reports here, we've got real-time reports. I'll try one more time here. We got all these accounts I got to jump through. There we go. GitFan Madison. GA4. There we go. So there's this one up here called real time. And back in Universal Analytics days, real time report was great. I would just kind of test with that. And I could see, oh, there I am. I'm going to poke around. I'm going to do stuff. What's utterly annoying to me is this is not the place to look at this anymore. So I go into admin. I go to debug view. And the best way to do this, so the reason I've got this in the slides is I'm going to be using Chrome. I'm going to have an extension called Google Tag Assistant up here. And that just kind of lets me track. So that's this up here. It just lets me kind of track and debug what's going on. So that's going to help me out. I'm going to have that going to debug. And in my case, I also add Tag Manager, which I've talked incessantly about and you guys are tired of hearing about. So what I do is I preview in here because I might be testing. I want to make sure these events are happening in here, right? I want to go through and do that. So I might preview it. And these all work together. And now it's like, okay, you're going to do some testing, Eagan, go to getfoundmadison.com, go ahead and connect. And now you can poke around on that site. People are asking, what is that keyword form? This is what I'm talking about right here. This is just the keyword right here. SEO, digital marketing agency. So what should be happening now? You're like, what is he doing? I'm just kind of poking around and testing, right? I want to see, is this sending events? Are things happening right now? So before I even hit submit on this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check analytics and give it a second. And now you can see real time. Here we go. We can actually see our events. and it's kind of annoying that it's not in the real-time report and it requires all these other tools and things. You can probably do it without Google Tag Manager, but I think you need to be using Chrome and the Tag Assistant extension. So I know that was a lot of steps. Don't worry if you got lost in that. This is like technically if you're setting stuff up, right? So I've got a bunch of events firing. None of these are a macro conversion. This test I'm doing, no one's filled out my form. Let's just see. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. So this will be embarrassing if I don't have this set up. But let's just say, okay, I've got up in my URL, I can see that debug view. I just filled out the form. You can see I broke my own rule where we don't even have a thank you page. We're just like, saying, hey, thanks, we'll get back in touch with you, right? Let's see if this got sent over. There we go. So because in my event report, I have form submit as a conversion, we get a nice little green flag. I'll zoom in even. See that? So we can see what happened, what events got sent in, and are we actually tracking form submits? Yes, we are. That's great to see. Maybe there's another one I could do. I have a click to email down here in the lower left corner that then opens up, a client, so an email client, so someone can just email me. Great, looks good. Let's see if that got sent in. If you need to poke around and test, this is basically the way to do it. It's finicky. It takes a second. Hey, there we go. Click to email came in as well. So I just wanted to add this little section. I know that's kind of technical. Don't worry if you got lost on this. What you can also do is just go in here, go into admin events, set the dates, give yourself 90 days, right? And just wait and see if you're getting stuff coming in. So if you don't want to fuss with getting that stuff in real time, that's totally fine. But if there are things on your map that you listed out as conversions and you're never getting events in here, we got a problem, because then we're not tracking that, right? The event's not coming in, we don't have it marked as a conversion. That's what we want to fix. Feel free to tell me if I'm going too fast or too slow. I have no idea what everyone's knowledge is here. So I'll keep it moving. Just wanted to show that real quick because it's a total pain in the butt, but once you got it working, it's great. You can see form submit, you can see everything, right? All right, I'll keep it moving. Let me know if you got totally lost in that or if I'm going too fast or too slow.
I have a
Next
quick
up.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the very beginning, you said there's like, if we've already got our Google Tag Manager set up, but we don't have all those pulling the forms, like we have Gravity forms on our site. So if we don't have those already connected, like I just tried to debug for our site and I filled out a form and nothing happened. So we should be able to just go back into Tag Manager and edit the triggers to be able to get that to connect.
Yeah, and that's one that I set up years ago in my case. I can show real quick. So inside, so we've got all these tags. I've got all kinds of code. You guys hopefully won't have this much. And then we've got triggers, and I set up special ones for Gravity forms. And the way that I got this working, you may not, all your forms can go together. That's totally fine. Or for some reason, I'm tracking even separate forms. And so in my case, I figured out I could use Google Tag Manager form submission trigger. The form ID equals this. And I figured this out somehow, probably by like clicking through on the site and like right-clicking, inspecting, and just like figuring out what on earth form is that, or maybe in WordPress, I found that somewhere, right? So it's like somewhere in the code is like, there's a name of this form, right? And I was able to find that and just track that. So if one thing just to check is, can GA4 do it out of the gates? And so I would go to my data stream. I would go inside here, and this is what I'm talking about, enhanced measurement, right? Hit the gear. My question for you would be, do you have form interactions turned on? Looks like I do. Looks like I have Gravity forms. I don't think GA4 is grogging it on its own. So that's why I did the Google Tag Manager setup. Feel free to message me if you want a screenshot of that or something. But yeah, there is a way to certainly track almost anything you want to do with Tag Manager. To make your life easier, you don't even have to do the Tag Manager stuff. Just see if when you have all these clicked and turned on, are you then able to see these in your event list? So that's kind of step one. If the answer is no, then we're turning to Tag Manager. And if you have trouble on Gravity forms, let me know. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. All right. There's other gotchas. You guys are like, just show me how to use the reports. We're going to get there. I promise. We're on our way. We're on our way. So a couple other things. Connect GA4 with your Google Ads account. I recommend not importing your conversions. Set up your Google ad tracking separately, ideally with Google Tag Manager, right? Just because GA4 and Google Ads, they just count differently. So just, even though it's the same thing, they fill out our form, track it directly in Google Ads using their code. Google Looker Studio used to be Google Data Studio. I recommend building reports with that. I thought about getting in that today. That'll be a separate training. I can send more resources about that. Underrated. Google Search Console gives you your SEO data. Google Analytics lets you know what's going on your site after someone's already gotten there. Google Search Console lets you know when are you showing up, when are people clicking, when are people not clicking on Google results. So definitely set up Google Search Console and tie it in with GA4. Google Merchant Center if we're doing e-commerce. Yeah, running shopping ads. All right, we can create audiences in GA4. So for example, the whole point of this whole ecosystem is we're tying things together. Google's got all these free tools, right? And then when we go to run ads, we can be more targeted. So you can run display, Gmail, YouTube. Google owns all these inside Google ads. You're able to run these, right? And so out of the gates, you're going to have all users and purchasers. You may want to create your own more detailed audiences. Usually need at least 100 people in these. So you need a decent traffic to do this. If you say, hey, I want to create my own, it'll kind of give you these, right? Non-purchasers, that would be a good one to remarket to potentially, right? And then if you really want to dig in, you have all of these events now to key off of. So they hit certain pages, they spend a certain amount of time on the site. This one I'm testing right now, I call it non-converters of, was there a conversion event? It's less than one at any point in time. No idea if that's the correct setup. I'll let you know in a little while, but play with these in here if you really want to get targeted on your remarketing. Other GA4 settings, I'm going to keep it moving. How long does the data save? How do we filter out internal traffic from the company? What if we have multiple domains that we want to see all together? Unwanted referral session timeout. Let's go through these. So in your admin, there's data settings, data retention. By default, you're only keeping your event data for 2 months. So free tool, lots of great data. You get it for 60 days. So go in there and change that to 14 months. Yeah. And even that, I think we're going to be scratching our heads about a bit of, we may want to compare some of this stuff year over year. How are we going to do that? There's this whole other thing of export the data and deal with that elsewhere. I'm not going to get into that today, but the people who really want this data, they're playing with it outside of GA4, basically. Filter out internal traffic. If people work at your office and you're on one Wi-Fi or one internet, you can just Google, what is my IP address? You can go in here and filter out your IP address if you don't want to see your internal traffic when you guys are visiting your own website. If everybody's working from home, which they probably are, you could get a huge list of IP addresses, but probably it's going to be imperfect. Cross-domain tracking. So as an example, you know, I've got the Get Found Madison site, but then we're doing events on Eventbrite too, like the training next Wednesday, right? So I may want to track that all in one place. It's possible that someone clicks from Get Found Madison blog, goes over to Eventbrite, and I want that all one session. I know that's the same user, and I want it to be seamless. Here's where I configure that, right? So we get the code running on both, and we just let GA4 know, hey, by the way, I've got this running on different domains. Unwanted referral domains. Sometimes people will click out, say, to PayPal to pay for something. And then when they come back, if we don't set PayPal in this list, it's going to treat that as two different sessions. And then you're like, hey, what happened with these sessions? Everybody bought here, but I don't have any data on what ad they saw or the SEO or how they got there, right? So set this up if you ever have people coming in and going back out. I recommend setting up your own site here as well, because sometimes you'll see weird little referral stuff. So if you're ever seeing referral traffic that's not correct, that's where you fix it. Okay, this is why we're here. I better keep it moving. We need to get to know these reports. How do we use this darn thing, Eagan? All right, here we go. Why do we use analytics? Just a quick refresher. We want to measure the performance. We want to know what's working, what's not working. We want to answer questions in normal human language, in my case, English, right? And we want to find ways to improve the website. That's the whole point of all this. How do we do that? So how are people getting to the site? I always just like, don't even go in and explore and poke around in all their like strange reports, some of which are helpful and some which aren't. Ask yourself a normal question first, right? How do people get to the site? What are they doing on it, right? What landing pages are they hitting? What campaigns are they coming from? Are those getting me sales and leads? Which ones aren't working? What pages need improvement? Maybe on what devices, what browsers, right? Where am I losing people? Okay, so let's answer some of these. How are people getting to my site? In the upper left on this one, you should see traffic acquisition. So you can go by user, and a user might have multiple sessions. They came to your site 3 times, and they may have come different ways, right? They might have come from SEO the first time, an email, they got on your email list. They came from an email you sent out to your, your list that time. And then they came direct to your site because they bookmarked it or it auto-filled in Chrome. So there's different ways people got to the site. Under user acquisition, we're going to study that. Under traffic acquisition, we're kind of in the old mindset of sessions, which I still, they didn't go away. It's just Google's pushing us more toward user acquisition. But just so you know, like those are session versus user. Those are big differences. So inside this traffic acquisition report, I'm driving us here because I think this is the most important one. So if we were tuning out, this is the time to tune in. This is it right here. Okay. Traffic acquisition, session default channel group. Notice when I go to traffic, it's by session. If I go to user, it's by user. Okay. So under traffic acquisition, we're going session default channel group. How'd they get here? Organic search. They Googled us. They Binged us. They DuckDuckGo'd us. Okay. Direct. They typed that right in. They typed it right in the browser, or they had it defaulted in, or they had it bookmarked. Referral. They clicked a link from another site. Organic social. This is nice to see. Organic social and paid social are generally separated out. You're going to see some other in there too. That's fine. And then we're going to see user sessions, engaged sessions, et cetera. We'll talk about these in a second. And notice on the right, I now have an event count and I can drill down to the events I want to see. Did people fill out a form or not? That's nice that they started watching one of my videos. That's nice that they started filling out a form or they scrolled down the site. Did they get a hold of me or not? That's what I want to know. Okay. In the old one, there was a pull down called secondary dimension. Now it's a plus sign. So it's hidden. You can barely even see this. So when you're looking at this, you got default channel group, add yourself this and give yourself page screen. And it's called landing page query string. No idea. You can also use page path or screen class. You guys are like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna show this just so this is somewhat clear. So we're going under reports, acquisition, traffic acquisition by session. And now I've got a little plus sign and I want to know the page. Gosh darn it. Let's try page path. There we go. Not bad. Okay. If we have but one report in GA4, to me, this is it. This is all I care about. How did people get to my site? They Googled, right? And then what page did they hit? And then what happened, right? We've got all these events going on. Did anybody actually get a hold of me? Right? I can actually find out. Nope, this is a great blog post, but I'm not getting leads on it. Maybe people are getting on the email list. Maybe I can drill in there, right? So we can actually answer, are our pages or our campaigns working? Make sense? That's what we want to do. If that's all you do out of this, that's great. That's a huge win. Okay. So you can see it like this. You're like, yep, that's what we just showed. Great. And I can actually see what's going on. And when I scroll over, I can even get those conversions. So we can look at all the events and we can look at the ones that we marked as conversions under admin, right? This is what we actually care about. Okay. How about engagement? What if we want to do it the other way? I just want to know what pages are people hitting. I hope we all understand that not everybody comes in the front door, right? Many businesses are just like running ads to their homepage. They think everybody comes on the homepage, but if you've got a blog, if you've got particular services, if you've got other stuff going on, people are coming in the side doors and the back door and the windows, right? Which is great. That's the whole point of having different pages. So now we can see by landing page, how do they get here? And we can drill into source medium. And source medium is related to default channel group. Default channel group will group organic together. So we've got Google organic here, Bing organic, which we thought no one uses, but actually 1 in 5 people on desktop in the US use Bing, right? And so like, this is all just going to be put under organic in the other one, but here we can drill in a little more. And sometimes you will see Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, et cetera. So now I can say, what page did they hit? How did they get there? It's the same info, just a different way to look at it. And it's a little more detailed on source medium, okay? Likewise, I can go over, did they submit a form? Did they purchase? Show me the money. Like some of us have our own company. That's what we care. Like, am I getting leads? Some of us just want to know, like, are we selling things on our e-commerce site? If you work for someone, your boss wants to know this, okay? Or your client wants to know that. Let's talk about these new metrics too. This is kind of cool. So there used to be bounce rate, which was not as helpful as anybody hoped or wanted it to be. Bounce rate was like you hit a page and you left that page. Now, in some cases, that's normal. Like we only wanted you to see one page on the site, not super helpful. What's awesome now is there's kind of this mix of, did they really engage on your website? Did it last longer than 10 seconds? Was there a conversion event that you marked, right? You're configuring that based on what Eagan told you to do. right? And then we had 2 or more screen views. So it could be or it could be any of these things. And we're just getting a gauge on like, when people come to us from paid social, are they spending much time on the site? Are they doing anything we want them to do? If they're coming from organic, are they doing? Like, you could go down the list here, and then there's an engagement rate. Again, how many of the sessions or the visits you had, how many were engaged? Did someone do something we want them to do, or did they hit the page, bounce, leave, do nothing? That's what we want to know. So here, how might we use that? Remember this whole thing of what's working, what's not working. We can now go under user, tech details, right? And now we see browser. And now we know we can add what used to be called the secondary dimension, device category. So when you design your site, everything that HTML, CSS, all that crap I was talking about at the beginning, it all renders differently on different browsers. Everything's just a little different. Plus we all have screens that are like totally different sizes, and it's just a mess, right? And so sometimes the nice website we designed doesn't work. It doesn't look good. And so what we might drill into, I got to hide zoom on the right here. Our engagement rate is super low. Safari in-app mobile is most likely when someone clicks, say, a Facebook ad, right? They don't go out to Safari on their phone. They're kind of like getting this Facebook or Instagram version of the site, and it's often slower and it's jankier. And I can see engagement rate is super low. So find your browsers, find your landing pages, find your source medium where you've got low engagement rate. This is what's not working, right? Or you've got no conversions, one or the other. This is how we figure it out. Okay. We talk about adding columns and customizing reports. This will make more sense if I just show it. So there is a hidden thing in the upper right here. So I'm in Google Analytics 4. You may have to move zoom. In the upper right, there's a little pencil that says customize report. This is great. I got my columns. I want to know something else, right? Let's say I want to know my conversion rate, right? In general, people have been asking me, where's conversion rate? This is where it's hidden. So you go to metrics, add a metric. I've already got session conversion rate. Maybe I can add a user conversion rate. So I'm just searching in the list. I've got user conversion rate. Now I can apply it, right? And by the way, I can save this as a new report. So if you want to update your columns, you want to update the dimension is this thing on the left. I don't want to see default channel group. I actually want to see it by source medium, right? You could actually change that, set that as the default. And now I'm getting more details, right? So you can save that and you can, as a new report, we'll just call it source medium, right? And conversion rate, whatever you want to call it, whatever's going to make sense to you in a year, right? Save it and call it that. And now we're going to have that report and have access to that, right? So now I can see over here, what's our conversion rate by how someone got to the group. I don't see this getting updated. What's going on there? Here we go. Now we got source medium in here. I can drill in. How did someone get to the site? What page did they hit? I can always do page path, screen class, right? I'm sorted by users, and then what's my conversion rate? So suddenly I can actually analyze what's the conversion rate based on campaign, based on page, etc. That's how we drill in. That's how we find out more. E-commerce tracking. I'll go quickly. This is a big topic. There's additional setup to send in your products and your revenue and add to cart and all that. So let me know if you have questions on that. There used to be e-commerce and enhanced e-commerce. Now it's all just e-commerce. You can get revenue sent in there. There's kind of some interesting metrics, average revenue per user. So if you're doing paid traffic, if we can get more revenue per user than we're paying, that's something to think about. In our reporting, then we can see revenue on the right. Zoom is totally in my way. We do get some user journey sorts of things of, are they viewing products? Are they adding to cart? Just kind of some funnel reports in there. We can actually see the items. This is cool. This requires all kinds of data getting sent from our e-commerce platform into GA4, but actually see the names of our products, right? Pretty cool. We made it. I hope we've got a little time for questions. I think we do. In summary, there's always more to learn here. There's custom reports. There's user flow analysis. There's creating dashboards in Google Looker Studio. And then Google Tag Manager is the whole thing. If you're not using this, strongly recommend learning this or getting this set up, because you can make it consistent between GA4, between Google Ads, between Meta Ads, Bing, LinkedIn, whatever you're doing, right? And so if you're interested, I've just got a course that teaches it. This one's a video course. So I'll just put a link in here if I can find it. And this one, I think, is only 47 bucks. So if you're like, hey, that sounds useful, I want to know how to do that, this is where you can do that, okay? and then put another plug in for the workshop. Would love to see you next Wednesday. That's great. This is how we measure stuff. How do we actually figure out who we're reaching, right? How do we market to the right people, do it on the right channels, do it with the right messaging, and measure everything? I'm getting some feedback. I went really fast. Yeah, sorry, there was a lot to cover. Feel free to ask questions. I'll come back to things. So this piece here is, how do we actually get something out of our marketing? The analytics is how we're going to measure it. So would love to see you there. I'm going to drop this one in here as well. And then if you just want us to do this for you, we just do this for clients for $500. We set up GA4, we set up the events and conversions, we set up all your ad tracking, and we give you a marketing dashboard. So you don't even have to log in and look at any of this stuff. We'll just, it's like, you can just go, you can bookmark one place and go see it. So if you ever need help, you can email me, Eagan@getfoundmadison.com. I'm going to put in a link to the workshop next week. Sorry for bouncing around. Sorry if it was fast. I can definitely slow down and go back. I think we've got a little bit of time unless I'm mistaken. So please do join next Wednesday if you're interested in strategy and getting the most out of your digital marketing. But now I'm here to answer your questions or slow down and go back to anything we missed.
Eagan, I'll kick things off with a few questions in the chat, but I do welcome participants. Please hop in if you would like to ask questions live. Going back, Eagan, you were talking about the e-commerce. Will those metrics apply to donations for nonprofits as well?
Great question. So it depends how you're taking the donations. I know we have many people doing nonprofits. The question is, how are you accepting the donations? So do you have a site where it's like they go in and it's almost like they buy like a product on an e-commerce site? If so, then it's possible to set up what's called the data layer and basically send that information back to GA4. If they're going out to say PayPal or some other site to do the donation, then it's a bigger question. I know there's, and you can tell me there's probably particular sites you're using. There's a particular site you're using to do the, they click out away from your website and then they donate. That's all TBD. Of some platforms, let's say Eventbrite, for example. So Eventbrite is where people can sign up for my workshop, right? I'm able to just put in my GA4 ID in there and it all gets sent back in. So I can see Eventbrite performance right inside my Google Analytics. So in that case, yes. So some platforms should be able to send revenue data. In the world of nonprofit fundraising and so on, I'm not as familiar with those. So it's going to kind of depend how you're taking the donation. Happy to say more about that if you have more questions.
Another question that came in says, I set up our GA4. However, Universal Analytics still shows up as one of the properties. Is that normal?
Yep. And that's, I don't think you need to take any action on that. That's just going to be there. It's supposedly stopped taking data July 1. So use GA4 going forward, keep the old one for reference, but it's not going to keep collecting data as far as we know.
All right. Another question, what is a gravity form?
That's just one of the plugins on WordPress to use forms. There's different plugins you can use. Some of them Google Analytics 4 is good at understanding that someone submitted a form, and some of them they're not. So it just kind of depends on your plugin. Gravity Forms is good in other ways, but then it causes all this other complexity. So, it's just like you kind of got to know how to track it. So that's sort of the thing. You make your life very, very much simpler if you just have a thank you page, because then all you got to do, instead of all this complicated crap, you're just like, here's my trigger. I'm going to make a new one. We're going to do thank you page. I'm going to do page view. Instead of all pages, I'm going to say some page views. And I'm going to say the page URL contains thank you. Right. And then you've got a trigger, and you can just trigger that on anything, like whatever, call that a Google ads conversion, call that a Facebook ads conversion, whatever you need to do. That makes life much easier. As soon as you do that whole thing I showed of the keyword form, it's just like, hey, thanks, we'll get back to you. And it does not redirect. It just makes life a little trickier. So if you're able to just say, hey, redirect on form submit, it makes life easier.
Great. Thank you for showing that. I do want to take a quick pause. One of the benefits of joining live is that you get to ask Eagan questions should you want to come on. Otherwise, I will keep pulling questions out of chat if we don't hear anyone speak up.
Okay, Linda asked, do we know how to make GA4 HIPAA compliant? So in general, one of the terms of service with Google Analytics is that there's not any personally identifiable information, PII. So, you know, people are filling out your form, they're putting in your info. It's actually part of the terms of service that info itself, the name of the person, their email, their phone number, you know, their payment info, if you have e-commerce, none of that should go to GA4, and that's part of the rules. So in that respect, I would say, yes, it should be HIPAA compliant. There's probably more stuff we could dig into about the remarketing. Maybe that's a concern. Sometimes when we do advertising for, you know, sensitive type things, anything that's health related, the platforms themselves, Google ads or Meta ads will just say, hey, you can't identify people, you know, based on some health issue. Like they'll just not let you advertise. So that's kind of a separate issue. Feel free to ask more about that, Linda. Okay, Liz Boyd's asking, see time spent on page, or is that just gone for good? Good question, Liz. I don't know the answer. Okay, let me say, so the question was, can we see how much time people spent on the page, right? One asterisk that belongs there is the old metric we had for that in Universal Analytics was not as good as we thought it was. So it would count, but it had this complexity of if you left your browser and just left the website open for whatever, however long, right? It would just time out and then it would stop at 30 minutes or whatever, right? If you loaded the page and did nothing and then came back and moved again, like it just had all these complexities around it where you might even spend 5 minutes on a blog post reading it. And if you didn't do anything and no events triggered, it would still count it as 0. So time spent on page was never as good as we might have imagined it was. So I will say that. In terms of where to find that now, great question. I may have to follow up on that one. I have not seen it. I'll keep poking around.
Well, and maybe we don't need it. It's just funny, like there were certain things that we were tracking and like benchmarking year over year. And so now it's like, oh, some of these things, like either you can't find them or maybe they don't exist anymore. But I liked your approach at the beginning of just, you know, you need to look again at your website and say, what do we actually want to know, you know, in terms of like events and conversions and that sort of thing. So I think that was a helpful, you know, approach.
Yeah, thank you. I am customizing this report. So this is the whole, I'll do it again just so you guys can see. So we hit the little pencil up in the upper right. We can customize it. We can add a metric. Let's say I don't want user conversion rate. There is a max of how many columns you can have. If I do time, there's average engagement time. Let's take a look at that one. So it's loading that one up. That would be the one to look at. Yeah, I didn't even get into the exploring the reports thing. Explore is pretty challenging, so I didn't even want to go there. I'll just show it real quick. So there's here's the reports that come out of the box. What if you want a custom report? Well, there's this whole thing about you can explore in here and create your own. And if anyone's played at this, you found out very quickly, this is confusing as can be because I don't understand the back-end data structure. So if I wanted to build something similar to what I see in my other reports just to get my bearings, right? Let's do source medium because I kind of like the additional level of detail, right? Source, where are we at? Do I have that? There we go. Let's go source medium, import this, double click on it, and that kind of adds it to the rows, okay? And then our metrics, let's just get some basic ones. Let's get, I don't know if we can do users, totally. Let's do total users. Let's do sessions. Let's get some of our basic stuff here, right? Maybe events. I have to specify events. I'm not even going to do that. Conversions, I would love to see. Okay. Oops, I meant to hit import on all those and I didn't. Let's do views. Sessions. sessions. Let's keep it simple. Let's import that. Double click on this. So we're starting to build our own report here. And this is like, here's the time frame up in here. Maybe I want to set that to 30 days or what have you, right? And I can rename this whatever I want and start to build my own sort of thing, right? Let's keep adding these. So in here is another place to explore, going back to the question. And you can just kind of search by time. I'm not seeing time spent on site in there. So I think your best bet is going to be in that report, add the metric and just see how that looks. So yeah, feel free to ask other questions about that. There are other reports in here as well. Let's go to pages and screens maybe. So average engagement time is in there. It's got this. The average length of time that the website had focused on the browsers. That's kind of interesting. You can see I've got multiple tabs going. Most of us have multiple tabs going. So when someone, toggles away to another tab, it's kind of resetting it, right? And so people might come back and it may count, the default channel grouping totally differently. All right, hopefully that answers it. There is average engagement time. That's what it's called. Check that one out if that's what you want.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eagan. I know we're kind of coming up to the end of our time here, so I think we're going to wrap with questions there. But again, for those of you who are with us, we will be sending out a recording. Eagan has shared his contact information and some resources. So thank you for joining us live, and we will be sharing follow-up information in the next week or so.
Thank you so much for attending, and thank you, Eagan, so much. See y'all third Wednesday. Andrew Foxwell is going to be talking Facebook ads, and hopefully we'll see Eagan there. You can ask some questions in person.